There it is. Okay, the request for the mini clinic was just to do a basic on how a steam engine works. So I compiled a bunch of photos here, so we'll just go through them and talk about it. And anybody ever has any questions, I'm no expert on it, but we'll uh, okay, why don't I there we go. The basic principle of a steam engine is the fact that when you take water and boil it and turn it into steam, the water expands to 1,600 times its volume. And that steam expansion is what can be used for locomotion. And in order to make that steam, you need a boiler. And this is out at Ravenna. And this is I forget which engine this is, but it's basically a boiler stripped down to its basics. And can you see my cursor moving around? Anyone?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so this part back here is the firebox end of the boiler. And this is where basically where you have the fire to heat the water. These next three sections are the boiler itself, and then the front section is the smoke box. And the basic principle here is that you take the the heat from the fire goes through the tubes in the boiler, transfers the heat to the water. The exhaust from the fire goes up through the stack, which is actually assisted by the exhausting steam. And as the water is heat is transferred to the water, you have steam up in the top of the boiler up here, and you have what's called the steam dome that collects the hottest, driest steam. And then you have the valve here. This is the throttle, which opens and closes a valve in this area and sends steam down to the pistons, to the valves, and which direct the steam to the cylinders. So that's basically it's a tea kettle for creating steam. And this again is at Ravenna, and this is a boiler showing its innards. And what you see back inside here is the ends of all the flue pipes, where the water goes around the pipes within the boiler, and the exhaust from the firebox goes through the tubes to heat the water. All of these protrusions here are called stay bolts. And the reason that you and the purpose of the stay bolts is to hold the inner and outer sheets of the boiler a certain distance from each other, and they also have a little bit of flex in them to allow the expansion and contraction of the heated metal. And what we are looking at here is the inside of the firebox through the side of the boiler, where two sheets have been cut away to be replaced. You can see the outer sheet wall here, and then inboard from it you can see the edge of where the inner sheet goes. Okay, and this particular part that you see here is this particular boiler's design has these thin sheets and these tubes that carry water to help right in the firebox transfer more heat to the water. I had never seen this before till I saw this particular steam engine. There's a better view of them. Here you can see the stay bolts between the inner and outer sheets, and as the uh, as the as you go over the top of the boiler, the stay bolts become longer because there's more distance between the inner sheet, which is called the crown sheet, and the outside sheet of the boiler above the firebox. Did I lose anybody yet? Here's the inner and outer sheets were precision drilled there at Ravenna to replace the sheets that had been cut out. And here's the outer sheet. The inner sheet's already been welded in, and the outer sheet is now properly located and being held in place, getting ready to weld it in place. Here's a cutaway of a boiler showing the steam tubes, the flue pipes, which are all the small pipes here, okay? But then an advancement that came for superheating the steam to make it extra hot is in the form of these larger flue pipes. And what they do with these larger flue pipes is they have an extra set of water pipes that run through them and back to superheat the steam. In other words, the pipes that go within these are already steam, but they get superheated steam, which is, as opposed to saturated steam, which is steam that is barely hot enough to stay in a gas form, whereas superheated steam is at a temperature much higher than that and is a long way. It's called dry steam, and it's a much more high pressure steam and more usable steam because it doesn't condensate out right away like saturated steam. Here's another cutaway of a steam locomotive showing the superheater flues are the big ones, as opposed to the boiler tubes, which are the smaller ones. And now here at the end, you can see where the superheater pipes are coming out of the superheater flues, and they all go up to a manifold here where if you see way back up here at the top, there's a pipe from the steam dome that comes with the steam from the boiler and sends it through the superheater header to superheat the steam before it goes down these pipes into the valves and into the cylinder. Does everybody know what they're looking at here? It's awful quiet on the other end. Okay. This is another view of this is, well, in this case, the firebox is at the left-hand end. The smoke box is at the right-hand end. Here's the stack up here. And you have showing wet saturated steam goes up into the steam dome, and it is taken and sent to the superheater box or the header. The saturated steam goes back and forth in the superheater tubes to become a superheated steam, which is then throttled to go to the steam chest, or basically to the valves and the cylinders.
Hey, Randy.
Yeah.
How
Got
is I noticed that the fumes go out. It appears they have their own flue tubes. and then they go up out the stack. How are they directed in there? Are they colder and therefore lower? Or
What
how does that
happens
work?
is, and none of these drawings or photos show it yet, but uh, when a steam locomotive is first fired up, you have no draft. You have nothing to force the air to move through the firebox. So they will use a fan to blow, basically to get movement through the firebox and through the flues and then out the stack. Now, after the boiler is hot, there is a natural exhaust via that. But what happens is when that really, when a steam engine is running down here where the cylinders and the valves are, as a piston is pushed, well, this is a good place to show it. Here's a cylinder right here. Here's the valve, and right above it is the steam pipe coming with the superheated steam. The valve motion is driven off the drive wheels, and what happens is when a piston is like pushed forward, when it gets all the way forward, the valve just above it, where'd my cursor go? The valve just above it changes, and the excess steam from behind the cylinder is exhausted, and it goes back out a pipe, and it's sent through a venturi that shoots the steam straight up the exhaust stack. And that venturi effect draws air in through the firebox, through the tubes, and creates the draft to basically draw the products of combustion from the firebox out through the exhaust stack.
Is there a vacuum behind the piston, or is that part of it?
No, there's still excess pressure. Like when the piston is pushed forward, you don't let it go until there's no pressure at all. Just like a internal combustion engine in your car, when most of the pressure on the piston is used, the valve opens up and you hear the exhaust boom, coming out your tailpipe. That's pretty much the same thing that happens here. Is when for example, when the piston gets pushed forward, there's still pressure behind it at the point in time when it gets all the way forward. But you don't want that pressure in there when you put the pressure in on the front of the cylinder, front of the piston, to push it back. So when it gets all the way forward, the valve above it is opened to allow that steam pressure to escape, and it is sent out through a venturi out the stack. And then the same thing happens when the piston is pushed back. When it gets all the way to the back, then the valve above it opens and sends its excess steam out the stack. And now on the other side of the engine, the mechanism is called what's quartered. In other words, it's 90 degrees off from the mechanism on this side. So what happens is when this piston is halfway back, or basically when it is in its non-power part of its stroke, the other side of the engine is in its power stroke. So you get, per revolution of the wheels, you end up with 4 exhausts out the stack. Chuff, 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 and that is a full revolution on a wheel. Did I lose anybody?
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay. Let's see, I think that kind of covers it for this photo. Okay, and this is kind of handy because it shows all the other hardware that comes along with it. This is the pilot truck. Here is your cylinder, your steam valve. Here, this is a valve stem. The 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 piston that goes in and out to move the cylinder. You got your push rod here, which comes out of the back of the cylinder. And then crosshead is what guides everything here. You got your main rod, which is the big rod that goes down to a driving wheel. And then you have the connecting rods that link all four wheels together at the same time. Crank pin, and I'll show, I got a better photo of this, but in terms of figuring out how the what's often referred to as monkey motion on the side of a steam locomotive, you have to kind of think of it as on a regular gas engine, the spark plug is ignited before the piston gets to top dead center. So you have an advanced timing. So before the piston gets to where you want to change direction on it, the valving changes to send it the other way. And that's what the eccentric rod and the mechanism does here, is it changes all the mechanism in the valve and the cylinder in advance of when it needs it, so that you get the power stroke when you need it. Back here, and then the tender supplies water through a hose into the boiler, and then the coal bunker here is for the firemen to put coal in the firebox. On larger engines, they had what's called a stoker, which is a mechanical auger which sends the coal in, and then in an oil-fired locomotive, it's the oil's put in with a pump. This is a K27 narrow gauge locomotive, probably in Durango, and this shows a good view of some of the hardware on the side of the part of the motion. Here's the piston rod for the valve. This moves back and forth, and it's controlled by this rod here. The piston is here, the main cylinder, and the piston rod goes straight in and out of here, and it is carried on these guides that move back and forth. And then here's your main rod that goes down to the in this case, the third axle. And then you have the eccentric rod here that makes the valve motion in advance of, puts a steam in just before the cylinder gets to where it's needed. And then you have your connecting rod down here that connects all four wheels together. Now, in this case, because the wheels
Randy,
are,
are you
hello?
just about to wrap it up, or?
I can stop anytime.
All right, well, maybe, yeah, it's a very interesting subject. I've learned more than before, but I imagine that's something you could talk to all day. So why don't we save maybe the rest of it for another time, if that's okay?
That's